Can read what it says. Okay, we're gonna call the order. This is personnel matter. Complaint, grievance, whatever you wanna call it. So we'll open it up at 5:13. Okay, so you get to start.
Okay, well, again, thank you guys for coming and listening. I appreciate you guys' time here. I realize you guys are all going to time tonight. I'm gonna give you a little bit of background about myself. Some of you guys know me, some of you guys don't. My name is Kyle Mitchell. I grew up in Wolf Lake, Washington. This is started in my 21st year teaching. I started in Kalispell, Montana. I taught there for 3 years. I moved to Darby for 3 years. I taught a few years in Mansfield, Washington, which is a little tiny town in the middle of Washington. And this is my 13th year here teaching metalworking, woodworking, computer design, and the junior high shop program. My wife, so you guys know my wife. My wife's also a business teacher here. We have 2 young boys, a 6-year-old kindergartner and a 4-year-old preschooler. Both of them go to school here. I love this community. I love this school. I hope to raise my kids here. I hope to retire. I've been the Skills USA advisor for the last 7 years, right previous to this. A lot of people don't understand what Skills USA is, and Skills USA, I guess, is the best way for me to describe it. Is a student-led career technical service organization, similar to FFA. So like a lot of people are familiar with FFA, and FFA is based on agriculture. Well, Skills USA used to be called VICA, Vocational Industrial Clubs of America, and they decided they're going to change their name. And Skills USA is focused on skilled trades such as woodworking, metalworking, automotive, culinary arts, healthcare, and marketing. Skills USA, or since COVID, Skills USA has probably been one of the most successful extracurricular programs many school districts offer. In the last 3 years, I've been lucky enough to be able to take kids to, or in the last 3 years, there's been more state champions in Skills USA than probably any other activity in Plains High School. During the same time, students participated in Skills USA, like the last 3 years. Basically, every year the students have participated in Skills USA. On average, they've gotten about $1,000 per year per student in scholarship opportunities. So it's been fairly successful on that side of it too. I've had the opportunity for the last 3 years to take kids to nationals in Atlanta, Georgia, every June for the last 3 years. We've had kids that qualified for nationals. Last year, the school decided to start a junior high Skills USA program. Trista Feist was the advisor. The junior high chapter was incredibly successful. I think every member of the Skills USA chapter in the junior high was actually qualified for nationals last year. Not all of them went. When they went to nationals, originally they told Trista, the school told Trista that they would not pay her to advise the students at nationals. Prior to that, she was paid on an hourly basis. Right? Trista told the school basically that she couldn't leave her family and work for a week without pay. So the school came back to her and agreed to pay her $100 a day, which equates to about $4 a pay per hour for what she's getting paid when she was advising students here during the regular part of the thing. And this is weird because when we're taking kids to nationals, you can attest, it's most of the time it's like a 16-hour day that you're advising or working with students. Okay? This obviously was stressful for me because it might have meant that I could have been the only person advising 11 kids, boys and girls from ages, 7th grade to 11th grade at nationals. It gave me cause to sort of reevaluate my stipend when this happened to Trista. My skills stipend last year, I got paid for 12 months, and on average my take home was not $90, or my take home was approximately $90 a month, okay, for last year. The last 3 years while taking kids to nationals, I averaged about 300 hours a year advising students for Skills USA. And basically, it went from, at one point, it was like a 3-month, Skills USA went from at one point like a 3-month thing. Now it's turned into like a 10-month thing. We've had kids that have been state officers and that sort of stuff. And it just, the program's growing. It's incredibly successful. This means that basically my hourly rate was less than $5 an hour, which is about half of Montana minimum wage. A few other factors weighed into my decision to ask for an increased stipend. The biggest factor was almost a year ago today, our, at the time, 3-year-old son was diagnosed with type 2 or type 1 diabetes, okay? And this put an incredible amount of stress on our family, obviously, because with a 3-year-old son with type 1 diabetes, it's basically 24-hour monitoring that we have to do. And, yeah, and like I said, it obviously increased our financial burden, okay? So this caused me to sort of reevaluate my time away from my family and what my time is worth. Another factor that sort of weighed into this thing, guys, is last year I successfully applied for this school for this Montana Advanced Opportunity Grant, which provides the school about $27,000 for programs like skills. $7,000 of that grant per year could be used for salary stipends, meaning that this was my chance to ask to get competitive compensation for my stipend. So, I mean, I wouldn't be taking money away from other school funds or other school programs because it's a grant that we earned for this. The third thing sort of weighed on me last year was while attending nationals, the day before we were scheduled to leave Atlanta, Atlanta was hit with a torrential or a rainstorm and thunderstorm that basically shut down the airport. Okay, it totally closed it down. That night, and this is the day before we left. That night at 3 a.m., Tristan and I both got notices that our flights were canceled and there was no opportunity, there was no plan for another flight. Like, I mean, basically it said, you're out of luck, good luck. So we were up at 4 o'clock in the morning, trying to figure out what to do and that sort of stuff. And of course, there wasn't any help from the school because it would have been, what, 2 in the morning, or no, like 12 at night or whatever. So anyway, Chris and I rushed down. We found that there was a hotel down the road that had, so we ran out, me and her at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we went down and found a hotel for the kids and us to stay in. Then we spent the next 7 hours on the phone trying to figure out how we were gonna get home. We ended up getting home 2 days later, but it was, like I said, with little or no help. And like I said, if you guys listen to what Trista wrote in her resignation letter, she showed sort of the other problems we had as far as funding and understanding how we were at these places. When state happens in April, and you don't know until the end of April that if the kids make it to nationals, the nationals is in June, so that gives you basically 2 months to try to fundraise and figure out how you're funding these kids to there. And there's been years where, I think the first year Dr. Walsh was here, she sent me an email saying, how are you gonna pay for these kids to get there? And that year we tried to do a dinner, and she canceled the dinner, and she told me at the time, she goes, we'll figure it out when we get there. And I get an email saying, how are you? And I said, no, how are you gonna figure out how we're gonna do it? Because you said you were gonna cover this. So it's a ton of stress trying to do the fundraising and that sort of stuff, is what I'm trying to say, and try to figure out how and if we need those kids there, and how much money we need to get there. When I returned home, we returned home 2 days later. I returned to my sheets, and that's when I sent the email that I shared with you guys in the August board meeting. And that sort of brings us to where we are now. Okay? So I just wanted to give you guys sort of the background of what's happened and that sort of stuff. The email was sent 2 weeks prior, guys, to the board approval of the CBA. Dr. Walsh said, oh, we should have talked about it in the spring or whatever, but this is before negotiations were finalized. This is something that could have been handled at that time. I never got an email back from her, and this is something that's common along this whole thing. I think we go through that as we go through this. Okay? And that brings us to the August board meeting, which you guys were all there. Okay? What happened at the August board meeting, and we have the video and transcripts to sort of show it, but basically what happened is there was discussion of whether it was a resignation or whether it was not. And at some point, Lana decided, she said, well, we're gonna table this, but there was no first or second or, of it. It was just we're tabling, and they shut it down, okay? And that didn't follow the rule law. And that was the basis of one complaint, okay? So going on, I guess we go through, you guys have had a chance to probably go through the grievance, okay? My grievance has basically three parts to it, okay? The first part obviously was it was handled properly, okay? The second part of it was, when they posted the position, they're supposed to let us, this last year during when we were negotiating for CBA, one of the agreements was said is that they will email anytime a position's posted to the staff. And there was no email sent out to the staff when they posted this position. The third question is if the resignation wasn't finalized, is there a resignation? You know what I'm saying? So anyway, you guys have read, hopefully you guys have read through this, but basically like I said, Robert's rule of order wasn't followed in parliamentary procedure, which is ironic because it helps teach us these things, okay? The new position wasn't announced through email, which would have been an easy change to make. You know, this is something that you could have said, oh, well, we could, okay, we'll email you out this. But nothing was ever done by this. And then I said, I was sort of left in limbo with this whole situation, okay? My request for this whole thing was like a cease and desist for violating the CBA, okay? So basically I said, all they would have done at this point was probably say, hey, okay, we'll send out an email notifying the staff that this is going on, okay, that you were going to post this. That's all they had to say. I'm asking that you guys go through and finish the resignation, is what I'm asking. It was a tabled item. You know, that's something that I'm not going to argue with it. I'm not, like I said, if you notice it in my actions, I'm not asking to be the Skills USA advisor. I'm not asking for compensation. I just want to help educate you guys on what happened in this whole thing, because I feel like one side of the story has been stated, but not the other side of the story, is what I'm trying to say, okay? I want to just reprocess the position, and like I said, my ultimate goal, guys, is to set up whoever that next Skills USA advisor is for success, and I want to set the kids up for success. I mean, that's my ultimate goal as we go through this, okay? As we go on, we go through, the union did a memorandum of agreement, and eventually Dr. Walsh came to me and asked, okay, give us a proposition of what you want to do. Okay, and this is the only time in this whole process that Dr. Walsh met with me, okay, throughout the whole thing. I asked to meet with her in the first email, I asked repeatedly to meet with her, but this is the only time she said, she just wanted me to give a proposition. So we went with the school, the union, and we put together a memorandum of agreement. And the idea was, for this, was to basically set the Skills USA position up the same as a high school coach position. So make it equal to the high school coach, okay? Dr. Walsh at some point said, no, we will not negotiate with you, which seems weird because Skills USA is an item that's in our CBA, and in order to change the stipend or whatever, it needs to be negotiated through the union because it's a CBA, it's an item that's in the CBA. So that's what Appendix D is in here, is the memorandum of agreement that the union agreed to do. So the memorandum, people always say, oh, these CBAs can't be changed. They can be changed fairly easily, okay? They can be changed with either a memorandum of agreement or memorandum of understanding. And with a memorandum of understanding or agreement, all it takes is the union officers to do a vote, for you guys to do a vote to change it. In the past, we've had issues with certain positions in our CBA or this extra duty thing not being filled. And part of the reason these positions have not been filled is because the items like athletic director, junior high athletic director, junior high volleyball coaches and stuff like that Part of the reason, especially the athletic director and the junior high athletic director hasn't been filled, is because at some point, the superintendent made the decision that they were gonna take away the prep period that these people had to use, this hour they had a day to work on these things. Basically, it took away a third of their time to work on this position. It didn't increase the stipend, meaning that it's almost impossible for a person to do that. And like I said, as a union, we're happy with, we have no problem with people being compensated. We want people to be compensated for their time, obviously, you know. But if you guys see that our positions are not being filled, that's probably what's going on, is they're realizing you can't, you know, like I said, I'm not gonna work for $5 an hour anymore, you know, at this point. And I want you guys to understand that, and I guess that's something I wanted to show. So during the November board meeting, Dr. Walsh said that, oh, the news, or there was an offer given, okay, for this, and that would be back on, so before we going back and forth here for a second, I'm sorry. The offer was B. Yeah, $3,500, okay? The problem with that, again, is that was an agreement through the union, okay? And it's, like I said, this is a position that is in our CBA. In order to change it, we need to negotiate for it. So, my point of bringing this up to you guys is for that next Skills USA advisor, it needs to be done, it needs to be addressed through the agreement, that's all I want to say. I want that next person to be, obviously be compensated more than I was, you know what I'm saying? And I want it to be addressed so that that person is successful, so that I don't come back, or this union doesn't come back with another grievance on changing the stipend without going through the union. You understand what I'm saying? So I just wanted to bring that up so that the next person has that opportunity, okay? So like I said, we had all this stuff. One of the things I want to say is, when they were trying to negotiate, when we were negotiating through this, the bummer is, there's no time when someone would come and talk to me and say, hey, what would work? What do we need to do? What do we, you know? Dr. Fettinger came a couple times, but she made it clear that she wasn't a deciding factor, and that she was just trying to figure out what we could do. But I asked, why are we not meeting together? Why are we not visiting as a group and figuring out what will work? And I guess that's one of the huge frustrations I had through this whole process, is it would have been something easy to hammer out if there would have just been communications and leadership, you know, on this. And I said, I asked several times, you guys saw my email, because all I want to do is I wanted to get Skills USA parents and you guys and the whole thing rolling so that the kids were successful is my ultimate goal in this whole thing. So going on with that, talked about the memorandum of agreement. We talked about Appendix A. I explained to them, one of the things that they wanted to do when they offered that position, guys, is they wanted to combine the high school and the junior high. And there's not a school in the state that combines both the high school and junior high. It'd be like me coaching girls and boys basketball together, or something like that, because you're looking at two different clubs when you do this, okay? And on top of that, it's hard to even say that because you have up to 40-some competitions that you could be supervising, and a lot of those competitions are happening at the same time. So there's no way I could go and supervise, and it could be at a different building or a different place. So I felt like I was basically, when they offered that position as a high school and junior high, I felt like it was a no-win situation for me. It wasn't going to be safe. It wasn't going to be equitable. There's no other positions in the school that ran like that. And that's what, like I said, that's what Appendix F, I think, says. This is my email back to them, and I said that, hey, I'd be happy to do it as a high school supervisor, but I can't do both. I mean, basically, it said it's just not, you couldn't do it safely, I guess, is the word. And it would have turned it into basically a full-time job from here on out. You know, and I'd be doing 2 full-time jobs because it's that big. And I guess, I don't think anyone took the time to listen and understand what was going on. Obviously, I got an email back saying that they didn't want me, and that's fine. okay? Going on, appendix H has the advisor things, and I want you guys just to look through this, and the whole point of adding this is I wanted to show you how big this position is. They want, it's bigger than most coaching positions as far as that goes, and like I said, this goes back to me wanting the next person to have the ability to be successful and do this, you know, is going on, and that's the reason I added this. There's no way someone can facilitate all these different things at once and then manage volunteers. And then the other thing you guys gotta realize is with Skills USA, with travel for sports, travel's taken care of by the athletic director. With Skills USA, that was all on me. So I have to figure out where transportation's going from. I have to book hotel rooms. I have to figure out where we're eating. I have to figure out how flights are gonna work. I gotta figure out itineraries. All that stuff is on me. Or with coaches, all they have to do is show up and coach and get on the bus with them. They don't have to cover the rest of that stuff. So I want you guys just to have an understanding of that as we go through this. The next stage was Dr. Fettinger's response, okay, and she's saying that this position's not, it isn't a grievance because it's not part of our CBA, but it's clearly posted several times in our CBA. It Skills USA Advisor is a position in our CBA. And one of the things that she says is, under the definition, she goes, that with a bargaining unit, it says that you have to be certified class 1, 2, or 3, but the actual thing they cut out of it is that below it says class 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, including MCAs hold emergency authorization, provisional insurance, but below it says as well as others who perform professional service in contact with students and other professional natures. Skills USA is obviously in contact with students, and it's a professional nature. Okay. Going on with this, it says that it should have been addressed as a 1700 complaint, and probably the fact that it happened when it happened at the school board meeting, it probably should have been addressed as a 1700. But the fact that it hasn't been closed is still a question, because it hasn't been addressed since then. It's an open agenda item, okay, and it wasn't even closed properly. Going on, the next big thing, and this, like I said, this might mean that we're meeting again here in a month. The letter, according to our CBA, once I file a grievance, the principal has 5 days to respond to that, 5 working days to respond to that, okay? You can see on Appendix I, the grievance was issued 11/21, okay? The question people keep having is, oh, well, this is over the Thanksgiving Day holiday. So if we look at it, Monday and Tuesday, we were at school. Wednesday, there was no school, but it's not a designated holiday. The way it's broken out is it says, working days should be defined as normal business days, Monday through Friday, exclusive of designated holidays. Is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving a designated holiday? I don't think so. Okay?
This is a presentation,
No, okay, I'm just that, okay. I can tell you that, I can show you proof that other people in other, I can show you that other people in this school had to use their vacation days to not be here on Wednesday, okay? Friday is Black Friday, but it's not a designated holiday, okay? Going on, nothing was received on Monday or Tuesday, so this is day 6 now. On day 7, at 8 in the morning, I sent an email saying that I want to progress to the second step, meaning that everything that was written by Dr. Fettinger should have not been included because I sent the procedure to second step in the grievance, okay? So I just wanted you to realize that, okay? After that, at 9:30 p.m., she came in with the paperwork for the grievance, okay? So she didn't follow the procedures for the grievance. I just wanna make you guys aware of that, because it might be the next thing that happens here, okay? So, anyway, going on. Like I said before, as well as anyone who performs professional services in contact with students in a professional nature. We talked about the criteria for a CBA. We walked through. She claimed that it wasn't timely as far as asking for it. It was based off of when the Skills USA position was posted, because that was the core of my thing, is it should have been emailed when that position was posted. Okay, and it was sort of ironic that it happened when I was out of town, and there's some other things going on with that, but it's neither here nor there. They said the resignation was a table item. We covered that, and then they said none of that stuff was addressed as far as the email. All right, going on for Appendix J. The next step, Dr. Walsh waited to the 5th day to try to meet with me, at which point she called me or emailed me saying, I'm out in the building, will you do a phone, okay, interview with me? So she didn't even, it made me feel as if she didn't even care to meet with me, I guess is what, okay? Because you had 5 days that you could have met with me, so she chose not to meet with me, which is, that's my opinion. But what happened after that is she sent me an email with her response to the grievance, okay? According to our CBA, Section 9, Sector 5, all grievances must be submitted, answered, and appealed on the grievance form attached to the appendix. Dr. Walsh did not attach it in an appendix, he sent it via email. Okay, she didn't even sign the form. Okay? Okay, which does not follow the CBA procedures. Okay? Dr. Walsh, like I said, Dr. Walsh did not return me the form signed and dated, so I couldn't return it to you guys. Like I said, I attached her email so that you guys saw what she did. The response in her email seemed to think that I dropped any complaints, which is incorrect. I stated before the resignation was tabled incorrectly and left as unfinished business, and it was open agenda item, and I didn't. The claim that it was not extracurricular positions or whatever, it was not an example. You couldn't use extracurricular positions according to CBA. It's absolutely wrong. Okay. On to this, the next one is what she emailed me. Okay. She says in here stuff about tenure and stuff. I'm not asking for tenure or anything like that. I'm just asking to have, if a position's open, to be emailed. And like I said, that was clear. Beyond that, I showed. She says that it has never been a policy of the district to add extracurricular positions through email. So I attached an email from one of the principals showing that extracurricular positions were attached as emails in the past. Okay?
I was trying to figure out what those questions.
Yeah, so anyways, so that's what that last part shows, okay? Back to where, on the November board meeting, guys, Dr. Walsh spent some time discussing Skills USA, and I'm concerned that the matter may not have been presented completely accuracy or with transparency during the November board meeting. Recognizing that, I want to recognize that every situation has multiple perspectives, but I'd like to.
This is not part of the four corners of this agreement, so you can stick to your agreements. There's an agreement about something that Dr. Walsh said during the meeting, your perception of it.
She said that there's a substantial increase. She talked about the pay increase on that, didn't she? So that is.
Please stick to the four corners of your original agreements. That's what the board has to consider.
Okay. To wrap up my presentation, I'm not here to be a victim. I'm not looking for compensation or remain Skills USA advisor. I'm here to advocate for the Skills USA program, the students, the staff, and the community. My goal is to educate the board on what happened and ensure that the policies, procedures, and contracts are followed. I am advocating for better leadership and communication. I am asking that the board finishes up what they started and vote on a resignation. And then they should, the superintendent follows the procedures as laid out by the CBA. My hopes are that is that we can help set the Skills USA students up and the next Skills USA advisor up for position. In closing, I think it's absolutely crazy that we're sitting here. And there's been so many times where a little bit of leadership and communication could have altered this whole situation. I feel that the superintendent has not given much effort in order to resolve this grievance, and that this situation helps to illustrate the lack of professionalism. Lana's speech at the beginning of every school board says that the board does not handle the day-to-day operations of the school, but when a superintendent is incapable or unwilling to handle the day-to-day operations of the school, then as a board, we need to help step in. Thank you guys for your consideration and time. Do you have any questions for me?
I'll talk. Well, no, I have to back respond.
Oh,
And then you
okay.
guys talk.
Okay.
Okay, so you guys heard a great deal of information. 99% of it is either false or super to the situation. There are three components of this grievance, is what you heard. The first is that in August, there was an issue about a resignation on the agenda that was tabled. First of all, district by district policy and by state law, uses Robert's Rules of Order as applied. Anyone that knows Robert's Rules of Order knows that you cannot be using elements of assembly. There is no way to comply with the law. So you use the general parliamentary procedure. A board chair can table an item that is inappropriate on the agenda. The issue was, is this really a resignation? Someone is offered a position and says, I will do the mission. Okay, that's not a resignation, because they have accepted a position. More importantly, the collective bargaining agreement requires that when you file a grievance using the collective bargaining agreement, you have to allege a violation of contract. Nowhere in your contract does it address Robert's Rules of Order or how a board chair tables an item. That item was not ever appropriately included in the grievance. So when we're talking about the appropriate process, that's the first thing that you need to be aware of, is that cannot be addressed. You do not have jurisdiction to address it using your collective bargaining agreement. It should have been a policy 1700 complaint if there was an allegation that the policy was violated. That meeting was in August. This grievance was filed in November. By board's policy, you have to file it within 30 days. It was not filed within 30 days. So the board doesn't have jurisdiction to consider whether it was tabled appropriately or not. The second has to do with the posting, and that's really the substance of this grievance, is whether or not the collective bargaining agreement requires that you follow the terms and provisions of the collective bargaining agreement for all of your extracurricular provisions. One thing that we should say today is absolutely critical is saying, I'm not asking for tenure. Individual staff members don't pick and choose which provisions of the collective bargaining agreement apply to individual staff members or positions. There isn't a school in the state of Montana that has anything different than you do. You have a collective bargaining agreement that has negotiated stipends. Those stipends are usually a percentage of your base pay. I understand that a lot of work goes into these extracurricular positions, and they're not subject to the minimum wage law requirement of the state of Montana. They are covered legally through these stipend payments. I understand asking for more money, I get it, it's a lot of work, but you can't individually negotiate with the staff member. So when the staff member comes to the board and says, I'm not gonna take this if you don't give me more money, the board cannot offer more money to that individual at that time. Yes, you can enter into an MOU. That's a discussion that takes place between your administration and the union, not the individual staff member. Regardless, let's look at the actual language in your collective bargaining agreement. When we look at specifically, I want you to look at and go back to the language that we talked about, or what positions are covered. And it talked about professional positions. Keep in mind, we're talking about all of the extracurricular positions. That means your basketball coach would be considered a professional position that would acquire tenure. Every stipended position would acquire tenure if you apply the provisions of that agreement. And if this were the case, I guarantee you the state level MFPE would be in here arguing this grievance. If it was
district was trying to exclude positions that were covered. Notice they are not. What this means is that your stipends themselves are subject to negotiations between this board and the union. It doesn't mean that you have to follow all the other provisions of the collective bargaining agreement. You could have agreed to do so, and you may agree to do so at some point, but you haven't up to this point, which means none of the other provisions are going to apply to extracurricular activities, specifically the posting position that we're hearing about tonight. There was an email in your packet that when the issue was, what Dr. Walsh said was, there is no policy or procedure that requires us to do this, and it's not covered by the collective bargaining agreement. It doesn't mean that a principal can't send a notice out to staff saying, hey, by the way, we have a position open if anyone's interested in it, but it's not a requirement. Many districts do it, but frequently they don't. It depends on what's going on within the district, whether or not there are other individuals that might express interest in having that position. I would ask you to consider your history. I don't know how long everyone's been on the board. But there hasn't been a time when any of your coaches have been either non-renewed or didn't take the position or offered the position where you followed the procedures in the collective bargaining agreement requiring termination of tenured staff members. There is the district in the state that has a procedure for what you're being asked to read into your current collective bargaining agreement. The third had to do with the resignation, whether or not it was finalized. And again, we've covered that. It's an issue of whether or not it was truly a resignation. A resignation is when someone has been offered a position, has accepted the position, and then chooses not to do it. In this case, Mr. Mitchell was saying, I'm not going to do this unless you pay me more money. That's not accepting the position that you offer. So there's nothing to resign from, frankly. As a board, you can consider whether or not you need to up stipends for your staff members, and I would encourage you to do it because they do put in a lot of work. They really do. But what you're being asked to do tonight is to ignore your own grievance procedure in your policy 1700, ignore the grievance procedure in your collective bargaining agreement, and add language into your collective bargaining agreement that would give collective bargaining protection to every single extracurricular stipend position within this district, whether that person otherwise works in this district or not. It would be a first in the state of North Carolina, it'd be a horrible precedent for you to set, and it's not a great idea. There was a lot of talk about the procedure involved in this, and I want to explain a couple of things. And again, some of this is collective bargaining language, but specifically what wasn't read was that it says 5 days after the grievance is presented. All grievance procedures are going to back up to your state law or what it is. That means day one that it's presented, you don't start counting until the next day. So when we look at the days of when the grievance was filed, and then designated holidays, whether or not classified staff members had to take vacation, is irrelevant to whether or not those are holidays for your certified staff. If they were not, the certified staff members would have been charged with leave from their leave accounts to not come to work on Wednesday and Friday, even though you didn't have students in the building. That's not the case. Designated holidays for your certified staff. And that's always been the case in this district. No certified staff members have ever been asked to use leave when students are not present in the building. There's no school. And whether or not, and it's somewhat of a red herring, because under normal grievance procedures, yours included, if one step doesn't answer, it goes to the next step. But it doesn't mean that it automatically is a decision in favor of the person. In this case, the grievance was delivered in a timely fashion. The response was delivered in a timely fashion. And a great deal of time and effort has been arguing whether that's a designated holiday. Dr. Walsh was homesick on the day that she had her conference call regarding the benefits. It wasn't an attempt to ignore someone. She was homesick. I spoke to her that day. She was very sick. I wasn't even sure she could actually have the conference, but it had to happen within 5 days. And given the tenor of conversation, it didn't seem appropriate to ask for an extension. So the long and short of it is your staff, your administration has followed the appropriate process. There's obviously dissatisfaction with the agreement, with the amount of stipends that your board has negotiated, and you can certainly look at them in the future. But your collective bargaining agreement has been followed. Policy 1700 was not, and that is the only way you could consider what happened in God's agreement. Now you guys have to talk about yourselves.
I had a question for you, if you know anything.
I mean, it's not normal, but if you want to.
Right. How does that work for summers? Say a grievance filed 2 days before summer, does that mean you have to wait
let's say
Summer, so
someone has
it's
a copy
good.
of your CBA in here?
Yeah,
Okay, let me see, cause most collective bargaining agreements address summer, and they'll say it's working days, if it doesn't, then yeah, your district's got some lazy language.
No, I think they did address that.
Yeah.
for some of them.
It almost always does, because that comes up when we talk about working days,
It's
if it
different in
doesn't.
school.
Yeah, okay, working days shall be tied to normal business days, Monday through Friday, exclusive of designated holidays. Yeah, so if yours doesn't, a normal working day, school is open in the summer, and your school is not open on Wednesday and Friday.
so it.
There are not people working.
It was over on Wednesday. For sure.
According to your staff, school was not open on Wednesday and Friday.
I'll show you Tandy. I'll show
Probably
you-
school calendar, I think it says there's no school days.
Yeah, I can show you the maintenance had to
Are you-
use.
Did our kids come to school Wednesday? I don't
No,
know.
there's
no,
not Wednesday
no.
or Friday.
Like
When there are
holidays.
breaks,
Holiday
when
break.
there's a break, your classified staff are required to use their leave if they want to get paid for those days. That's classified, that's the difference between classified and certified.
So then during the summer, it's normal business days.
During the summer, it depends on
Yes.
what the school calendar says.
So if a grievance is filed the last day of school, it could not be addressed till the beginning of the school year?
No, not necessarily.
I feel like that was
No, no,
addressed,
no.
right, when we did collective bargaining, they talked about summers this year, we talked about 5 working days of when your staff was in the office working.
Yeah,
Because
like when
Miriam
Catherine
works year
was-
round, she's
yeah,
here all summer,
when they're in
so it
there.
counts as long as she's here, it's normal working day for the business office. I
The
do remember
school
that
is closed
conversation.
on that Wednesday and Friday. Staff, classified staff would have to take vacation on those days. It's the same when it's not a legal holiday, and that's a distinction under Montana law, it's different than a designated holiday.
So, then, are we going off of, like, just for future reference, are we kind of basing the working days off of when the office itself is open? I mean, I know maintenance staff is here, their own staff.
Yeah.
Right, so, but we're just basing it off of when the office
The
itself
office
is
is open
open?
to the public.
Because, like, admin's not always, like, the principals aren't there through the summer, all summer.
It's if it's open to the public.
Your
Okay, so
superintendent, your
just if
business
the
manager.
office.
And they announced that they were not open to the public on Wednesday and Friday.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that first. We're done.
I would suggest that you might wanna clean up some of the language in your.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good this year, I thought it went pretty smooth.
If
Yeah,
you're-
but they
So
did
because
talk
we got,
about
because
it.
Yeah, we
this
did-
is
we
going
did
on,
talk
then
about
we go
it.
40 a
Right.
week, so Fridays, if the teacher's not here on Friday, it doesn't count as a.
Is your
That's
business
what
manager
it is.
Your
working?
business office open to the
If they're
public.
open,
You guys have the loosest language in your agreement procedure I've seen in a long time. It's probably 30 years old. I would definitely clean it up.
It's 1 year old, I think, because we.
well, I don't remember if we did, I thought we did some
I
good
know,
work.
most
I
teachers
think you-
specifically address some.
I think you understand it in the moment, and then.
And it doesn't always translate to the
Yeah, then
written.
you're like, oh,
Cause I remember we
Oh.
talked specifically about summer and it's if the business manager,
Well,
that
it was
office
there.
is open.
But again, it's a red herring because Dr. Walsh reached the same conclusion, which is the policy 1700 complaint cannot be filed using the collective bargaining agreement, and certified or positions that are addressed through stipend in the collective bargaining agreement do not receive the protection of the other general provisions of the CBA. There's a district in this state that offers tenure and everything else that comes with your CBA to coaches and extracurricular advisors.
So here's another question I have, because I remember when we tabled this, we talked about the board, cause we have always, voted on resignations. But our policy states we don't vote on that. Our superintendent accepts them and we do nothing, shouldn't even be on our agenda at all ever. So it's not really an open, it's just not there.
Yeah,
It
we got
didn't
rid
belong
of
to our
that a
agenda.
while ago.
Yeah,
It's
your board
gone.
uses
It should never been there to
MTSBA,
begin with.
yeah,
so
template
no
policy.
resignation?
No resignations.
We
So
don't,
like, we've been doing it wrong for years.
For years.
Okay.
Our
Okay.
policy
Yeah.
covers that.
And I'm
Our
like, I heard-
superintendent accepts resignations and that's it. We don't vote on
It was redundant to have to make a motion in a second to accept the resignation for somebody that's leaving.
But we couldn't
We
deny
can't-
them
You can't
anyway.
force someone to stay.
We can't say, never mind, we're not gonna accept your
Yeah.
resignation.
I always wondered.
Yeah,
We
you
could
can
never
say
vote
that.
in opposition to that as a board.
Right.
We have to accept it, period.
Okay.
So we shouldn't be voting on it at all.
No, it's just announced. Montana
Usually-
law,
usually
yeah,
Dr.
Montana law
Walsh
doesn't,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
the only,
just announced.
the only way
Just
to
like we used to
discussion.
always vote on bringing back all of our classified staff, which we legally
We,
couldn't do.
yeah, we had to get rid of that, cause that was
Oh,
something
so
that,
that's
there's no
not-
reason for us to reapprove classified staff that's already tenured that you can't get rid of without cause. We have no right to tell you that we have to make a motion in second for these people to keep their job.
Hence
Like,
when we
that should have
tripped into
never
the
been
thing
on there.
with Debbie and Ricky.
Right.
But
We
that-
should
yeah,
have never
that-
even had that on our agenda to begin with.
Okay, that would clean things up.
So we don't accept anyone's resignations anymore. That is the superintendent's job.
So no need to
Again, it's not
approve
due.
resignations or
Yeah.
rehiring.
So,
I'm just trying to
you
get
guys
it
use
straight.
MTSBA template policies, you've had them for quite some time, that has been in their policy manual since 2007, which means it's been the law of the land here for 19 years.
We just have to
Just hasn't been followed.
Yeah.
A lot of districts make that mistake though, because there's an understanding that someone leaves in the middle of the school year, they're breaching their contract.
Mhm.
And that boards take issue with, and so what your board, if your board wanted to do something about it, it would come to the board is, are we going to take action against the individual who's breaching their contract? Almost never happens.
But regular resignations don't come to us at all, so we tabled it and then it disappeared, it's not open because it was never an agenda item that was appropriate anyway. We're learning all sorts of things.
And the stipend issue, the staff put in an incredible amount of time, everyone knows that, especially positions like Skills USA, keep up, things that are, you're spending a great deal of time with kids. So you may wanna look at those options, but it comes into your global budget picture of what can you do.
And what can we afford?
Right, yeah, but again, you couldn't negotiate with the individual staff. MOUs are commonly, used by districts to try and, it's a memorandum of understanding, to try to, make the tweaks to be what the bargaining.
Not an individual thing.
Never an individual, yeah, so you have to say, for example.
It would be for all
You'd be looking at, we're gonna look at all of our stipends.
So you can't look at one position.
Generally
You have to
not,
look at
no,
all
because
of
it's
them.
based on
You're
a
gonna look at one.
percentage, yeah, of the base salary.
Which was a concern when it was brought, all I asked Dr. Washington, I couldn't say yes, take it, no, I just said, can we be creative?
Yeah, so
Because
what,
we can't afford that as a school
what you
district.
had last year was the junior high stipend came out of a 21st century grant.
Correct.
It wasn't a position that was actually covered by yours.
And it didn't come out of our general fund.
Yeah,
So we didn't do any of that.
if you were going to combine those positions, and I would listen to someone saying, maybe that's not the best idea, but I would have that discussion of if we're gonna combine those positions, it is gonna be a lot more work. Do we want to look at addressing that stipend and what percentage it's gonna receive, because it's fundamentally gonna be a different position.
So would we have to funnel that then, instead of having it come out of grant money that can cover it, like he was saying, would it have to come out of the stipend and the general fund, because our budget can't
It can come out
cover
of the 21st century grant money, but you can't say this is the position that's covered by the CBA.
You'd have to put in a stipulation where if the grant was there, it would exist, and if the grant went away, then it wasn't
You
there anymore.
do an MOU and say, if the high school Skills USA individual was willing to take on the junior high Skills USA, the 21st century grant money would go to the individual as well.
Right, well,
That's an MOU again, the union can agree to that.
which was trying to be creative because understanding the position needed more money, but the general fund couldn't cover it, and it opened it to everyone, because fair and equitable had it gone to everybody, we don't have the money, you guys have on the, because we don't have any money.
Yeah.
So that was the hope, how do we get grant money in there to cover it?
But wait, the MOA or MOU with the union, you said generally is something that impacts the whole staff, is that right?
Well, no, it would impact it impacts the collective bargaining agreement, which
Right.
impacts the whole staff.
Right.
It's unusual, and I haven't seen districts do this, where you say, we're just gonna give more money to one of these positions.
Right,
So you look at your stipends globally and say, are we competitive?
So
with
then
this?
all stipends might need to be
Need to look
adjusted
at all
if
of
we
them.
were doing
Yeah.
an MOA.
And
It would-
MOA.
Right, so we wouldn't do an MOA about a single position,
Generally not.
generally not.
You look
Okay,
at
I
it,
just
say,
wanna
okay,
make sure
all
I
of
got
our,
that.
yeah, you'd say, okay, all of our, and you guys have them as, again, a percentage.
Right,
And if I recall, football gets a huge,
It's the same as all
all the
the
varsity
other-
sports.
all varsity portions.
Okay,
right.
that, and so you'd wanna say, okay, how much time does it take to be this person, this coach? And you have a decent point, which is, you don't have a athletic director who's covering certain things, so legitimately, how many hours are spent in this position? That's where you figure out what that percentage is gonna look like. So, but you do it generally across the board, and it comes down to what can we afford.
Correct, and at this point, I'm told not much, and next year even less, so, so it was, how do we get creative so that the school is not causing, bleeding a little
Yeah.
bit for.
What's different about this is that those positions are generally high school extracurricular or co-curricular activities. You might have a middle school position in there as well, but if you're gonna combine fine too. And I don't think there's a junior high Skills USA position listed in the agreement. So the question is, can we add that it gets a percentage as well? And we're gonna give those to the one person. That's how you do it without screwing everybody over.
And the other thing is there's funding for these type of positions through career and technical education, through Perkins, that sort of stuff. There's other money, it's not like athletics where it's out of general fund. I mean, there's money's coming from other areas. So it could be addressed as a, extended contract, you know, like in most FFA advisors are extended contracts, where they give so many days extra per year to do fairs and that sort of stuff. So I mean, there's other ways you can do it. But like I said, in the past, we have said, oh, well, we try to do it general where everything is the same, where like I said, all the coaches are the same, well, you know, whatever. So I mean, but there is times where we need to look at, because some positions are individual. The athletic director position, that's a totally unique position, you know. And like I said, if we're not covering what they need to get someone to fill that position, then yeah, then it's the principals covered and the superintendents, and that's stuff that we need to do as a staff and as a union, you know, to figure it out. And like I said, we look at last year with, like I said, the junior high athletic director. It might be that we have to look at individual positions and say, okay, well, what's fair and what do we need to make this position work? You know what I'm saying?
And that's a discussion you guys are gonna have this spring when you're doing your budget for next year. Are you negotiating this year?
No.
Okay.
I think just,
For 2 years.
but
Okay,
medical
so-
though, right? We're opening it up for medical. Yeah.
Yeah.
Medical
So-
stuff's crap too.
Yeah, true, but you can always say, we wanna open negotiations for a limited purpose, or we wanna talk about an MOU or an LOA to address certain things, and that's easy, everyone agree, that's an easy fix.
So as long as both the board and the
As long as
union
both
agree,
parties
they
agree.
could reopen to
Limited-
address.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, because that's what we did for the teachers covering classes that were open this year for like second. We should have one coming up for health, human development for the 6th and 5th graders. And like I said, so
That's
there is.
usually Alec every year, right? Who's the ones that teach that.
So, I mean, like I said, it's a common practice though, is, you know, like I said, maybe the other way to do it is do it through an extended contract, you know.
So let me make sure I understand this. It is possible to open up negotiations with the CBA for the purpose that we're talking about, because we are combining junior high and high school one.
Both parties agree.
If the board agreed and the union agreed, then we could open it up and have a conversation about the fact that the stipend may not be adequate for what's being asked.
So it sounds like first they need to make a stipend for a junior.
Right, it's not in the CBA.
We
so
don't
like
have-
just-
we
it's
need to
not
put
in
it
there,
in,
no,
and then if
it's
they
not
want that,
in
they
the
need both
position,
stipends
yeah.
if they're doing it.
But
Yeah.
he even said himself, it's too good to have.
It's too big.
And so did Tristan.
And
So-
honestly, I think it's just stepping back and looking at, you know, do other schools have a junior high program? How are they running it? You know, looking at all the different things and trying to put it together in a way that other schools have found it's been successful.
And the reality is, there's never gonna be a situation in the school where it's minimum wage for the actual number of hours that people work, it doesn't.
In
That's
fact-
why classified staff actually can't generally take these positions, because they already work 40 hours a week for you.
Yeah.
Because they're classified, they have to be given this minimum wage. Teachers are exempt from the Fair Labor Standards Act, that's how stipends exist in a collective bargaining agreement. Is it fair? Probably not, but that's the way federalized law works.
You know, the state rep for Skills USA said a lot of these positions for Skills USA, they do it for free. I think, I mean, they volunteer and they just go do it for free,
Yeah.
so,
That's generous.
crazy, yeah.
That is a lot of stuff.
It's a ton of stuff. When you, almost all of your, I would say probably all of your
Extracurricular activity.
extra co-curricular
Coaches
people.
everywhere.
Requires a lot, you give up a lot of your, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, he spreads out through the whole year, if you're like head coach, you give up like 3 months of your life. You were
Yeah.
gone 2-3 days a week, out
Mhm.
to Eureka, Troy, God knows where else,
Yeah.
out till 11, 12 o'clock at night, then you have practices, I mean, they're on the road a lot.
They do it because they love it, not 'cause
They do,
getting
they're not doing it for the pay.
paid.
Brother tells me that, it's not for the pay, there isn't enough. You do sacrifice pieces of you in your life for something that, you wanna give back good, but, I mean, I don't think anyone disagreed that the money part didn't
And-
equate.
And like I said, but I think one thing you guys have realized too is, I think most of the staff members have no problem volunteering if they feel supported, you know what I'm saying? And I think right now that's what's lacking, is we're not feeling support. The other
We.
staff members in general, I think there's a lot of people that would typically donate a lot of their time and that sort of stuff, but we're not, I don't know, like I said, it's just, right now, it's like,
I'd be careful with this here too, we
Yeah.
cannot talk about other staff members' performance
Yeah.
in open meeting.
Yeah.
So, well,
so I just, I said, and I said, no, you said, and that was a big thing for me, so, you know what I'm saying, I want you guys to understand that, and like I said, I want more than anything for the kids to be successful, and that's the whole goal, so, again, I appreciate you guys' time and your consideration,
Hasn't there been a decision made that next year this is gonna be a curriculum?
Well, so I think starting next semester, but there's still two different things, so they're going to make it school-wide, so more kids have access to it, but that does not replace or get rid of the extracurricular after-school portion, which would be the competitions and all of that, but they do wanna move to making Skills USA more of a school-wide, rather than just an after-school
Like how
program.
FFA is.
like I have.
Correct,
Like
they
an
wanna
after-school.
grow it in
They
school,
can
so
use
it's,
part of the school day. to
yeah, so
do
they'll have
science.
classes to do that as
They
well,
can
because
do
they
it
want to
classes
expand
and
what
they'll
this
be
program
outside
is.
of the class.
Correct, we want to expand what Skills USA is because it has been so successful. When I ran for, that's what I wanted to see, is more that kind of stuff, for our kids to have access to put their hands on technical skills, so I'm happy they wanna move towards that. But there are two different things, but they're the same program, same idea. One would just be generated class 10, the other
So,
so that after.
If that works out, we can talk about this here. Okay.
Theoretically.
So, I'm asking, if that works out the way that does, and the majority of the Skills USA stuff that happens after curricular happens at school, that would be less strain on whoever's in charge of it beyond school, because we're gonna chunk it down.
Yeah, they
They
can
can do
do
some of it
focusing on
during
that
the
school.
but it depends, because you're still, no matter what, you're gonna have national, you're gonna have.
100%,
No,
yeah, yeah,
but the state competitions and that sort of stuff, and I guess the thing that you run into is, you sort of have that how do you say it, delusion of interest, when everyone's forced to do it, rather than the people that are really serious about it, you know what I'm saying, and that's, the biggest thing I worry about is last year it took us, it cost us about $300 per student to take up to state. If a kid doesn't wanna go to state, it's hard to justify spending $300 per person
Sure.
to take it to state.
And I think that won't be the kids in the class.
Well, they're
though,
not really
those are
committed
the
to wanting to be
after-
there.
Yeah, and like I said, and I don't want, and if I was that person, as someone that's supervising those people, you don't wanna take a bunch of knuckleheads or force a bunch of knuckleheads to go, cause all they're gonna do is screw around and root for those kids that really wanna be successful and care about it. And that's sort of what we saw with some other programs that we were doing, is we were forcing kids to go and do these things, which I'm not big on forcing, I guess I said, I'm not big on forcing kids. But like I said, I do agree with if they wanna do it,
Make it an option.
yeah, do an option after school,
It's a-
but,
Or even an option for those kids who can't do it after school, there's a lot of parents who, I'm sorry, you're not doing sports, none of those things, it doesn't work with my work schedule, say they want to, they have the option to take it as an elective.
Right.
I can go to Skills USA as an elective class.
Yeah.
So I don't wanna go to band, and I don't wanna sing, and I don't wanna go to art, but I will go to Skills USA.
the issue, just speaking off top, the issue for me is what the school's missing is hands-on stuff. And I'm one of the few teachers that can do that hands-on, you know what I'm saying? So if it was, I don't know if it'd be a good fit for me because I'd be pulling kids away from the other stuff that we're lacking, you know what I'm saying? Is what, I guess that's concerned, but that's not here or there, but I'm just saying that's what the kids are looking for, I mean, they're looking for the hands-on stuff.
So question for you, as a board, what is the expectation for us now at the end of this grievance, what do we do?
You have to vote.
Okay,
It's
so
either
we
a motion
voted
to
on.
accept the grievance, which is you think that Mr. Mitchell is correct, or to reject the grievance and the administration is correct.
Okay, so like somebody has to take motion, second,
Motion, second,
okay.
vote.
Entertain a motion. To either accept
Or reject.
or reject, so you have to make your motion one or the other, first to vote yea or nay.
With the information that I've got at hand, I make a motion to reject.
Okay, we need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay. So now we need to vote. We'll wait for Mary.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, Monica?
No, no, you.
Oh, sorry, okay, guys.
She's gonna go around the table.
Steve,
Yes.
Robert,
Yes.
Lana,
Yes.
Monica, Colleen.
Yes. Although I would like to say, Mr. Mitchell, that I think there's no question that you have not been fairly compensated for the amount of time that you have been given, and I think you've done a lot of work to develop this program, and I think we all very much appreciate it. Which is a different.
Which is different than the grievance we had,
Than
absolutely.
listening to this discussion, you know, we kind of have to follow the advice of our legal help, but
And to speak up the way that you did,
No,
Yeah.
my whole
I
point
appreciate it.
is, I guess, I honestly, I almost felt bullied with the way it was happened, yeah, you know, but I'm telling you, I did.
Okay, that's a
And
whole different thing now, we
I
can't
know.
talk about another person's performance in open meeting.
My feeling, okay, and I said, because I wish someone would have talked to me on this whole thing, okay, and for me to find, honestly, I found out a couple days before, well, the day that Zane got married, that's the day I found out about it, and it wasn't an appropriate time to, like, it was something.
Organization finale, yes.
So anyway, I mean, but I'm the type of person that you guys realize from, if I feel like the kids are not getting what they need, or if I'm gonna be vocal. And like I said, I guess that's who I am. I'm not gonna feel like I'm getting pushed around, I guess, is what. So again, thank you for your time.
And you know, I don't think anybody's asking you to do anything different.
Yeah.
You've been, from the moment I was sitting on the other side of the table, from my very first meeting, those are almost your exact same words.
Mhm.
So, I don't think that nobody values you, but I'm sure there's a difference in what you're willing to accept is what we're talking about, your version versus ours.
Mhm.
That's just maybe something I have to agree to disagree.
So going forward, can I just say this one thing before we close?
Maybe.
Going forward, we are going to have a curriculum class, so you have the option for children to take Skills USA during the school day. Don't we still need to think about the extracurricular piece of this?
Yeah, they're completely separate.
Yes.
And having a conversation maybe at another time about having an MOA with
Possibly
the
in-
union and.
Yeah,
Like
thinking
in
about
the, yep.
she was taking notes.
So-
I didn't know
She is right there.
Talking about
Also-
negotiations.
That's not gonna change anything.
It's
So
gonna be
that
the spring,
person's back.
okay.
Yep, and we'll have to add junior high to that, yeah, we'll figure that out
Figure
later.
it
Okay, we're gonna close at 6:16.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
You're welcome, guys.
Yes,
Thank you.
Really much stuff here.
Now we get to go down into the big room.
You got
I
it.
think
So
you're-
hold on.
Yeah, we got it.
Wait, before you guys take off, did you wanna check in about scheduling the next couple of things we have to
I
do?
got your stuff.
Yeah, so we need to have a discussion strategy, meeting because we've gotten notice that there's.
I'll be right back.
No, no, have to stay, sit down, not yet, almost.
Are we still on?
Is that
Did you
still
turn that
recording?
off? Just turn it off.